Hey, this is Rachel and Stacy from the Decoding Couples podcast. We hired Adam to help us market our podcast and leverage our brand in order to gain sponsors and partnerships. He was able to help us create a fantastic idea around a membership program and also helped us streamline our recording process. With Adam's help, we were able to get our membership community up and running within 2 months. We have successfully locked in our first podcast sponsor and generally feel more confident in how we market ourselves and talk about our podcasts. 10 out of 10 recommend. Thank you, Adam.
Hey there, Pod Pals. Do you feel like you could use a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or with converting your podcast listeners into becoming your best clients? I want you to head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and watch the 4-minute video that talks about who I help and exactly how I can help them out. Next, I want you to click on the Discovery Call button to set up a free podcast profit potential discovery call where we can talk about working together to help you reach your podcasting and online business goals. Head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for your free podcast profit potential discovery call. What's up, Pod Pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you're listening to Podcasting Business School. It's a show where I teach podcasters simple strategies to help them make more money with their online business. And today, you guys know I don't have a guest very often on the show, but when I do, it's somebody I'm obsessed with. And I hate admitting this in front of them, but I'm totally obsessed with this guest, Chenell Basilio from the Growth in Reverse brand, my favorite newsletter, definitely in the top 5 podcasts I listen to every single week. It's always on that subscribe, download every episode. I'm just going to consume it all. And we're going to dive into one of my favorite topics, newsletter growth and how that applies to podcasters. So Chenell, no pressure. I have really high hopes for this episode.
Yeah, seriously, that's all the pressure in the world. Thanks, Adam. I'm excited to be here.
The foremost expert in newsletter growth in the entire world, Chenell Basilio. All right. This is going to be a fun one. I've consumed so much of your content. I had a hard time deciding where to start. But one thing I actually don't know, I haven't heard like your newsletter superhero origin story. Like, how did you become obsessed with newsletters in the first place?
Nice. Yeah. So I actually used to run paid ads, like Facebook and Google ads for online creators, course creators, that kind of thing, up until about 2022. I burned out really hard with the services industry. And so I found this guy named Mario Gabrielli who runs the Generalist newsletter. It's a Substack publication. And he made his first like 300K in his first year writing his newsletter. And I was like, wait a second, what? This guy's a newsletter and he's making 300 grand in a year. No team, just himself. And I was like, I have to figure out how this guy did it. So I spent like, I don't know, 50, 60 hours and figured out, I like reverse engineered, listened to all of the podcast episodes he'd ever been on, went through all of his articles and his tweets. And I was like, how did this guy grow a newsletter that supported him enough to make like 300K? And I was like, whoa. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to write this up. I had screenshots. I had like embedded his tweets and all this stuff. I hit publish on that. And I was like, let me just see if anybody wants to read this. And so I started a newsletter about newsletters. And that was like, I was just super pumped about it. And I was like, even if no one reads this, I just spent 60 hours and learned something new. So that was the starting point of this journey.
And I'm so glad that you do this. And for those of you that are not familiar with Chenell's Growth in Reverse newsletter, I'll link it up in the show notes. As always, you need to get on this email list because she does these amazing deep dive breakdowns of how people are growing their email list. And you guys that listen to the show week after week, you hear me preach about this. Podcasters are not focused enough about growing their email list. We're obsessed with downloads, but especially if you're a service provider, people are more likely to buy from an email list than they are from a podcast. Because when they listen to podcasts, they're mowing the lawn, they're doing Romanian deadlifts at the gym, they're walking their dog, they're doing other things. When they're answering emails, they're ready to click buttons and buy stuff. So there's my little preachy moment. So I will link up the Growth in Reverse email newsletter deep dive, and I want you to get on that. That's one of your homework assignments for today. So that being said, we're already dishing out the goods here. Based off of what I just said, you could probably guess that I'm very preachy about this, but a lot of my audience are just getting started with newsletters and email list building in general. What are like 2 to 3 focus points as far as growth levers for these newbie newsletter people of like, okay, what I, out of all the things that we could possibly do, what are a couple that we really need to focus on?
Yeah, I think the first one, especially for podcasters, you're so focused on creating a great show. It takes a ton of time. Like I launched podcasts in December of last year, and I know this now. Like it's a lot of work. So the thought of like creating an email newsletter is probably so daunting for someone like that. But I think even if you just have an email capture form, like that is the starting point. You don't have to be sending out these grand emails every week. If you can just start collecting email addresses of listeners, I think that's a big deal. You can create like a top 10 resources guide if you want to from your show, or even just, I don't know, casually talk about the newsletter and just say like, hey, if you reply, I'll like give you a free tip about whatever your topic is. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but I think just getting started is such a big point. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's so important. And I think if you look at any creator who's been doing this for like 5-10 years, the biggest mistake they'll tell you is they waited too long to start an email list. So it's just, I can't hammer home enough. I'm sure people are sick of hearing you talk about it. So this isn't helping, but
No, I need you to back me up because I'm a podcast. I'm not like very similar to you. I'm a podcast about podcasting. You are a newsletter about newsletters. So yeah, we got to back each other up a little bit here. You know, that's how it works. That's why I brought you on. I'm like, reemphasize the key points, Chenell. We'll get them going. Now, one thing that you brought up, like simple lead magnets. I've got a full episode about one of my favorite lead magnet ideas with creating a Google Doc that is a new listener resource guide, which is some simple episode recommendations, a little bit of content, just a little bit of value delivered back. So I'll link that in the show notes as well, because like Chenell said, we just got to get going. It's like, if it took you 6 months to a year to figure out, launching a podcast, it's probably gonna take you way longer than that to figure out lead magnets and email list building strategies, because, we're layering things here. So I love that. Get started simply strategy. Now, do you have any, like, I'm a big benchmark person. I'm an athlete, I'm a former athlete now. I'm a dad now. I'm a former athlete. I'm a recovering athlete. But I like benchmarks. I talk about them a lot on the show with podcasting. Like, oh, if your show does 1,000 downloads per episode, you're the top 20% of all podcasts. Any like newsletter growth benchmarks you think we should be shooting for, or anything that would be like inspirational for somebody that's kind of in the building phase?
That's a good question. I don't know. I struggle with this because, like, of course, if you grow your list, it's going to help with your business, your podcast, that kind of thing. But you don't need a huge list. So I don't know. I hesitate to give out like subscriber counts or anything like that.
How about this? I'll reframe it.
Okay.
What's a good goal for, if you get around this benchmark and you're trying to sell things to the people that are reading your content, when do you start to see the needle really move? Because like, I started my newsletter in 2018. I had 7 people on my list, and 4 of them were me subscribed on different devices. So I really had like 3 people on my list, and I wasn't selling much back then. But once I got, I started seeing things happen later on. So any ideas on that zone of, you'll probably start to make more sales once you see this number appear?
Yeah. I mean, it's all a numbers game in terms of like percentages. If you're trying to sell your own products and that kind of thing, I would say 1,000 is probably a good number to like start paying attention to it more. A typical conversion rate for, I don't know, a digital product or something is like 2 to 3%. So if you have 1,000 people on your list and you convert 2% of those people, that's 20 sales. So I think that's a pretty good starting point. Of course, those will vary. If you have like a raving fan base on your email list, it's going to be much higher. But I think that's a good goal to strive for.
Yeah. That's actually the number I started noticing too. I'm like, I was obsessed with 1,000 people on my list, and I was like, now we got my 1,000 true fans. You hear about that all the time. All like the big fancy influencers talk about 1,000 true fans. That's what we want to be. Yep. So yeah, that was a big goal for me as well. So, all right. I want to talk about one of your latest experiments that I'm obsessed with. I want to break it down because it was like a lead magnet. It was a pop-up podcast, but it was all like, it was all engulfed in this, what you called a 30-day pop-up newsletter experiment. Mm-hmm. Can you just explain how you thought of this, why you decided to do it, and let's talk about some of the results?
Sure. Yeah. So it actually all started in the Growth in Reverse Pro community. So I have a community of like 80-ish people in there just trying to grow their newsletter. We're experimenting with stuff all the time. So we were doing a challenge of like collaborating with others, like doing cross promotions where I share your newsletter and my email, and you share mine and yours. It's kind of like a swap, like a podcast swap, just for newsletters. So with a typical one, you can do one per email. And I was only sending on Sundays. So I was like, okay, throughout this challenge, I'm gonna have like 4 opportunities to like get data back and like help my community members like understand how to do these better. So I was like, you know what? I wish I had more inventory to like send out. And I was like, what if I did a daily newsletter? And I was like, wait, maybe I'll do like 30, different ways to grow your newsletter. And I was like, oh my God, 30 days of growth. I just like came up with it. It's probably not the best name, but it worked. So every day I was sending out one tip on how to grow or optimize your email list. And it did really well. I'm excited about it. We had like 3,700 people sign up for it, which got me, I think, 1,750 new subscribers to my email list in a 30-day period, which is amazing. Like, couldn't be happier with that. But yeah, so that was the whole behind the scenes there.
And I saw this pop through and I get the email, hey, would you like to get these emails every day? Like, yes, please. I hit the yes, please button very, very quickly. But you also tied in some of these other growth levers and really audience engagement levers where you said, hey, if you refer this to one person, you know, using this button, then you get access to my private podcast feed that's affiliated with this 30-day pop-up newsletter. So talk about that a little bit now, because now we're mixing the podcast plus newsletter combo, which I love so much.
Yeah, I don't do anything small. So once I had this idea, I should have known it was going to take on a whole life of its own. But so I was like, oh, well, what if I did a private podcast where like, these tips were like, I don't know, 300 words or so. So they were pretty short compared to my normal sends that I do. So I was like, okay, let me do a private podcast. So every day I'll just like read the tip in a private podcast feed. And if you refer one person to the 30 Days of Growth pop-up newsletter, you get access. So I set it up through a tool called Hello Audio. And everybody had a unique like share link. And so you just had to share it with one person. And then if you shared it with more people, you got like more different prizes. But yeah, that was like the baseline one. And I think that was the key to getting people to share, was just that one referral prize.
Yeah. And I've got mixed feelings about private podcasts. I feel like there's good times to use them and bad times to use them. I think this is a great time to use a private podcast, as you've already got. Yeah, I'm not going to invite you on and like bash your strategies. Oh, that was a totally dumb idea. But this is a great use of a private podcast because you've already got them in on your list, and now you're leveraging that to get another person on your list and get a referral, and you're incentivizing them with that bonus content. I love it for that. So, I think it's a really nice marriage of the newsletter podcast combo. And you said 1,750 people on your list. That's incredible.
Yeah, that's new. We had a total of 3,700, but I was promoting this to my whole email list. So a bunch of people like you probably signed up. So 1,757 came from, every day I had another creator sharing a growth tip on this 30-day newsletter. So they were also promoting it in their newsletters. So it was like a whole flywheel effect.
Yeah. So for those of you that are following along, I would get an email every day with a very spicy title, growth lever. I'm like, ooh, this sounds great. And I'd open it, and it's Chenell breaking down someone else's strategy that they use to grow their newsletter. Mm-hmm. So that's where that collab goes in. And then at the end, towards the signature, it's like, and if you like this, you'll probably love so-and-so's newsletter. Here's the link. And then I assume that those people were doing a similar promo for you and their newsletter coming up that week. Is that a correct assumption?
Yeah, it was a much lower lift on their end. They just had to I gave them a blurb about the 30 days of growth and said like, hey, can you share this link? But yeah, so they were sending people my way. I was sending people their way. It was good. Good stuff.
This is what happens when I consume your content. I get so many ideas. I've got a growth in reverse notes. I've got like an Evernote file. And the 30 days of growth, send it to overdrive. I'm like, oh my God. And honestly, all cards on the table, I still have 3 emails that I've saved and not opened yet because I need to, I take time to break down your emails. I'm like, I can't just read these in the parking lot, picking up my kids from school. Like I got to sit down and consume it. So, so all cards on the table.
You are not alone.
Last 3 strategies haven't implemented yet. I haven't read them yet, but they will be implemented. But like podcasters could do this as well. Like, what if
Totally.
it doesn't have to be 30 days? It could be 5 days, 7 days. What if you did a shout out for another show on your show and you did like a 7-day, like so-and-so using this strategy for whatever your niche is? Like, I could do it about podcast growth. I'm obsessed with growing your podcast audience, and I could do 10 days of podcast growth and put out an episode of basically deep diving on someone else's growth strategy. And that will trigger a response promo from somebody else that I'm promoting. So a lot of opportunities here.
Yeah, I am increasingly thinking this is like the new way to collaborate with people and do cross promotions. I because so many people have had the same issue where they're not opening all the emails. There's too much. I'm creating like this mini course on the back end. It's like $100. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to set up videos of like how to do this stuff so that you can decide what to implement and what not to. Because I think a lot of people are struggling with the implementation on the back end of it.
I think people are overthinking it. I mean, are you getting that sense? Like they think, well, like at first, again, to be totally honest, when I'm newer to your world and you talk about collaborations and things, I feel like it has to be this big robust thing. And then when I got into the 30 days of growth, it's like you just have that little blurb about their thing at the end. Like, it's obvious that this is their little strategy, and then the little blurb at the end, and they're doing a blurb for you, like a blurb for blurb trade out thing. Like, this isn't that. Yeah, it's not that big of a deal, you know?
Yeah.
So
I agree. I think some things are more effective than others though. So I don't know. I'm just seeing like a lot of excitement around this. It's almost like a product launch, but it was like a free series that people are just opting into. So
any best practices on that blurb for blurb, like just anything that any template you could give us?
I think the biggest piece is like, make sure you actually enjoy the other person's work. And it's not just like, oh, well, they said yes, so I'm going to go with it. Because if you send people to not so good stuff, they're not going to take your future recommendations as highly. So I think that's a big piece of it. Yeah, I don't know. The rest of it is just like, how does it fit into like how you normally talk about stuff? Like, I wouldn't make it sound like an ad read. Just make it flow into your normal content. But yeah.
Okay, great tip. Don't overthink it. Keep it simple. Make sure it's good stuff. I mean, that's because your name is now associated with that. But that can't be a throwaway. Like you said, oh, they said yes. Here we go. They got 5K on their list. I want to tap into that bad boy. Let's go. And it ends up being a bad exchange. So we don't want to do that. And then you could end up losing people off your list because of a bad recommendation. And we never want that. Do you ever cry when you see people unsubscribe from your list like I do? I mean, like, do you openly weep like I do when like one person unsubscribed? I'm like, I worked so hard for that one person. Any thoughts on the unsubscribe?
I think I've seen it happen so many times. I think I published a LinkedIn post like maybe in January that last year, like 40,000 people had unsubscribed from my list. And I only have 40,000 subscribers. So it was like a lot of people have unsubscribed. So I think I'm just immune to it at this point. It is good if they're no longer into your content, like you don't want them on there anyway. But yeah, it's not easy in the beginning. That's for sure. Especially when you can recognize the person's name and you're like, oh no, like I thought they liked me.
Yeah. Damn it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tough blow for people, especially if you're in that first 100 and all of a sudden 2 people, you just lost 2% of your list, that's rough. That's very sad.
Yeah. It's a good indicator though. Like if you're seeing a lot of unsubscribes, like maybe either they aren't getting what they thought they were going to get when they signed up, or you're pissing people off a little bit.
Yeah. Well, honestly, one of I guess, I'm on this mission in 2025. That's my less but better year. And I'm like simplifying like a mofo over here. And one of my aha moments was my newsletter was going to be my lead magnet. So I quit promoting all my other lead magnets. I don't have any email funnels operating whatsoever. So that I was like, when people opt into my newsletter, the value they want is associated with opening my emails. Mm-hmm. That helped me mentally a lot. Like, okay, if they download my PDF, they just want the PDF and they may not want to be on my list. They don't want to get all these emails, so they may opt out. So that helped me just from a focus point of like, all right, these people want my email. So I'm building this list of people that want that value. So that kind of simplified things for me and it made me feel a little bit better of like, okay, I'm building it with the right people, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. I think it's just don't take it personally. Like actually through this 30 days of growth, I've had old subscribers who unsubscribed and have come back because of 30 days of growth. So
nice.
Yeah. I mean, over time, like as you do this longer and longer, you're just going to naturally lose people. It's just people go through seasons of life. Like they're no longer interested in your content right now. And that's not on you. That's just the way it is.
That's an interesting. Okay. Now you get my idea factory going again, Chenell. So do you think like this, however many days of whatever, this pop-up newsletter could be used as a re-engagement campaign potentially? Like once you do it and then repurpose it as a re-engagement and go, hey, people that haven't opened an email in the last 90 days, maybe run it through them a little bit.
Could be. That's interesting. It kind of takes the launch aspect out of it. But if somebody hadn't signed up for it and they haven't read my newsletter in a while, I could hypothetically start sending them to them and be like, hey, do you want to keep getting these?
Do you do any re-engagement at all, or do you think about that?
Yeah, I have like an automated sequence after like, I don't know. It depends on where they came from. If they come from like all the major email service providers have like recommendations platforms now. And so like a box will pop up after they sign up for someone's newsletter and I might be in there as a recommended newsletter. So it's like a really frictionless sign up. And so sometimes I just want to like double check that those people actually want to be on my email list. So they go through a more aggressive like onboarding process. So if they don't like click or open an email in like, I think it's 14 days, I just delete them.
Okay.
Because they probably weren't interested. But yeah, if someone doesn't open emails for a couple months, I think it is 60 days, then they go through a sequence.
Nice. Can you talk about the importance of getting people to open like your welcome email and like getting that interaction? This is some of the best takeaways I've had from your content. I've implemented right away of like, okay, we need people to open this thing. We need people to click on something. We need them to reply. This just helps appease the email opening gods out there that allow our stuff to not be in the spam box. So talk about that a little bit, like initial email checklist of let's get them to open. Let's take some action around that. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. So, I mean, the welcome email is very important. Most people either don't have a welcome email, which is like, it breaks my heart, or they're like, hey, thanks for joining. See you Sunday or whatever. The biggest thing you can do with an email, like the first email people get, is get them to reply. So think of if I were to email you out of the blue, just as a friend and be like, hey, Adam, like, how's it going? And you never responded. Like the next time I email you, Gmail is going to be like, did he really want that person to email him?
Promotions.
And like, exactly. You either go to promotions or spam. So you want to get people replying so that it shows Gmail like, hey, I actually wanted to get this content. And so it doesn't just keep like going unopened and then eventually they just throw you into promotions. Or now with Gmail, you can like unsubscribe like from lists directly. They have like a subscriptions tab. Wacky. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Manage subscriptions. Yeah, you can just unsubscribe from everything all in one fell swoop. So
scary.
Yeah.
Scary. One of my favorite tips that I got from the 30-day pop-up was the A, B, and C option in the welcome email. So basically, when you guys subscribe to my newsletter, it'll be like reply with A, B, or C. Which one are you most interested in right now? Podcast launch, podcast growth, podcast monetization. Just reply A, B, or C, and I'll send you a podcast episode that's related to that topic. And I just get all these emails, A and B, B and C. And just like now the conversations are starting and I freaking love it. It's so simple.
That's cool. Yeah. Especially when you have like a smaller list that's so manageable and you could easily do that. And you're like getting to know the people on your email list and they're going to love that. You're going to learn a bunch about them and how you can serve them better. So I think it's a win-win.
Yeah. There's something to be said with that, right? Like as if you are smaller, take advantage of being smaller and build real relationships. Like you got 40,000 people on your list. It's hard for you to know personally 40,000 people.
Right.
So if you're at 500 people, 40 people, 1,000 people, like you can build it at a different level as far as relationships go.
Yeah, it's such an important time. And like even a podcast or a newsletter, like having those closer relationships with the early subscribers is going to be paramount to how in the next 6-12 months you start growing, because you're not going to see it now. You're going to see all the hard work. You're replying to a bunch of emails like, is this working? But over time, those people remember you and they're going to start sharing your stuff with other people. And it just like compounds on itself, but you can't see it in the numbers. So just keep doing it.
Yeah, it's like compounding content interest.
Totally.
It's like a content Roth IRA. We got to we just got to add content to it every single week. Now, you're newer to the podcasting world. Like you are veteran status newsletter pro, but you added the podcast layer, which I've been so thrilled about because I consume both.
Awesome.
Tell me about your podcasting journey so far. And I know you don't do anything that doesn't have a strategy behind it. So how does the podcast strategy relate to the newsletter strategy, and how are we kind of leveraging both to build your ecosystem?
Oh, this is probably the only thing that doesn't have a strategy. I've listened to podcasts since like 2013 and I've always wanted to start one. So I was like, I'm going to do it. I found like Dylan had left Sparkloop and I was like, you know what? He knows how to do podcasts. Like it'd be fun to eventually start one. Maybe he'll like come start a podcast over this way. So I have a co-host. His name's Dylan. And yeah, it's just been amazing to like have someone to bounce ideas off of every week and like talk through certain things. Cause for me, I'm just like writing a bunch of stuff. So being able to like actually speak these ideas out there is really helpful. But yeah, it fits in well. Like I'm definitely seeing new subscribers to the newsletter from YouTube and the podcast. So that's been fun. It's just like a whole different ecosystem. Like I feel like I'm reaching a whole different set of people.
Yeah, well, one of my biggest other things that I preach about, other than podcasters need to do newsletters, is that a lot of content creators, online business owners don't realize they view podcasts as a nurturing mechanism. But if you do it right, it's a discovery mechanism. Like new people will enter your world because they search certain things on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. And like 95% of my clients find me because they search podcasting tips on Spotify or Apple. And that's not a nurturing mechanism. That's a growth mechanism in a big way. So like, yeah, I mean, if like with you, the ultimate goal is continue to build that email list. Like that's your main, like Star Wars Death Star. And you can take that death ray and blast whatever you want, like back end business wise with your community and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I think with your show, it's brilliant. I think that you're just getting started. So like I think you got a lot of opportunity with it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm loving it. It's been so much fun to just like get to talk about all of this nerdy newsletter stuff instead of just writing about it. But yeah, I mean, it's been great because it takes content off of my plate on some weeks where we have like a really great podcast episode. I repurpose that into a blog post and then I share that in the newsletter. And then if people want to get more, they can go listen to the full thing. So it kind of like promotes itself. I don't know how to explain it, but it's been nice to not have to write a deep dive every single week because I have this other really great long form piece of content.
Yeah. And you and Dylan do such a great job, just conversation. And I know he adds a ton of value as well. So it's a great mix. And my pod pals out there listening, they know I'm a huge fan of what I call either case study or coaching style episodes. And you do a different flavor of this and you call them roasts. You do newsletter roasts. And for those of you, some people are like, well, my audience. So just to catch you up to speed here, Chenell, I invite my listeners onto my show and I do a podcast audit and I coach them as if they're paying me. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah, we talk about growth, monetization, whatever they want to focus on. It's like they're paying me. I don't hold anything back. But some of my people are like, I have a mental health show and my people will not come on to my show, and like they have a hard time of getting people onto the show. So this quote unquote roast technique could be a really nice thing where Chenell and her co-host they look at the newsletter opt-in, they look at the newsletter content, and they just do coaching. And it's great for expert positioning, which is huge in podcasting if we want to convert listeners into clients. So can you talk about that strategy a little bit? How if you're enjoying it, kind of the strategy behind the roasts?
Yeah. So I do newsletter audits just like as a paid thing. Like people can buy them and I will sit down and record a 40-minute Loom video of me walking through everything. So this is a take on that. It doesn't go as deep as the full audit, but it gets pretty close sometimes. So we essentially just like pull up, like you said, their newsletter page and walk through everything we see. Like I'll subscribe live on air and be like, well, you should probably add something here. This doesn't work on mobile, all those good stuff. So it's just been really good to get people. I mean, the cool part about this is we set it up so if you want to get roasted, you have to submit a form. But if you include a screenshot of you having reviewed the podcast, we actually like bump you up the list. So it's kind of like our little way to get more reviews on the podcast. Because that's a really hard thing to do. Like, I didn't realize how hard that was going to be.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. The ratings and reviews. Well, let's leverage this right now. Everybody that's listening, pause the episode, go and leave. Listen to one of her episodes first. You'll love it, and leave a glowing 5-star R&R. The nice thing is though, a lot of people think that ratings and reviews impact your SEO and your growth, and it has nothing to do with that. So that's a good thing. So if you don't have that many, don't stress out about it. But I have to admit something that I hope that you find humorous. We were introduced by Joe Plizzi, Pluzzo, and from the CEX, the Content Entrepreneur Expo, and we had just been emailing back and forth or whatever. And I had sent you my website. I'm like, hey, here's what I'm all about, blah blah blah. And then I listened to you while I do my morning walks. So I'm on my morning walk like 2 days later, and you were announcing your next roast, and like the little pre clip was like, I hope we weren't too hard on you. And it's like, this is a newsletter about podcasting. And I went white and I about passed out. I'm like, please, sweet baby Jesus, I hope this is in my newsletter. Because the pre-intro clip was like, it's a bit much. I was like, oh no. Don't break my heart on your podcast, Chenell. So it was somebody else's thing. I think it was somebody from your community actually, whatever. It wasn't me. I was like, oh, off the hot seat, but it freaked me out. I literally about passed out on my morning walk. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, wow.
So funny moment there.
That's really funny.
And what's
I'm glad you
hilarious
didn't pass out on your walk.
Yeah. Like when people come on my show for podcast audit, they're all nervous about it too. So like, it's just like, I had that moment of like, this is what people feel like when they come on my show for a podcast audit. So anyway.
Yeah. You do them live. That's pretty intense.
Yeah. Well, I've done like hundreds of them. So it's just kind of second nature at this point. Like, you go, hey, I'm really struggling with growth. I'm like, all right, what's the name of your show? And let's dive in.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's just kind of comes along with the experience. But I think they are brilliant. They're really well done. And again, for my audience, that's an alternative way to do the coaching style episode and get some expert positioning. So that's again important when you try to sell things from your show. So you got a co-host. That's always an interesting dynamic when it comes to podcasting. How do you guys, I always find it interesting to see like who is like responsible for what? Do you guys delegate? Like you do this task, I do that task, or is it like just show up and create together and kind of figure it out?
Yeah. So he does a lot. He does most of it. So I show up, record, we'll like bounce ideas off of each other, like of topics and that kind of thing. But once it's done, like he sends it off to the editor, Tim, who edits for like YouTube, because I'm not a video editor at any point of my career. So I can't do that. So he's very good at like putting it together to make it look nicer for video. So Dylan will send that over to Tim with all of like the links and any screenshots or anything like we've mentioned, because the nature of what I do is so visual. Like there's a lot of pieces to it, especially when we're talking to guests and there's like, I've written a deep dive on them in the past and they need a screenshot of this thing or whatnot. So he does that. And then Tim takes it from there. We have maybe a back and forth or two of like, V1, V2 edits, and then hit publish. Dylan does all the show notes and that kind of thing. So I kind of just show up, which is nice.
That is nice.
I don't think I'd have time to do anything else.
You're just the talent. The talent shows up. And you deliver the good.
Yeah, I try.
So with your newsletter deep dives, like how long does it usually take you to do that? I mean, it's just hours and hours and hours. It has to be.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like 30 plus, sometimes 50, depending on like how much content is out there from the person.
I mean, and you can tell like when you all read one of these newsletter deep dives, it's excellent. I mean, you get so much out of it and you can tell that hours have been invested here. Now, for somebody that is a newbie newsletter person and that just freaked them out really bad. Yeah. How do we solve that? Like, what if you don't have 30 hours to do these deep dive things? Like, how simple can a newsletter be?
Super simple. As long as you're providing value, and like I have 5 buckets that I tend to walk through. So like you're saving them time, you're making them money, saving them money, entertaining them. If you can do like more than one of those in a single issue, It does not have to be a deep dive. Like my friend Justin Moore, he helps people get more sponsorships for their podcast or a YouTube channel and that kind of thing. And so he just sends out sponsorship opportunities every week. Like it's not a ton of work. I mean, his team helps him put it together, but it's literally like 3 links with like the brand name and that kind of thing. It's not a ton of written content. You could even just send out like written show notes of your podcast episode, like pull out the most interesting piece of it and then say, go listen to the episode. Like it doesn't have to be anything crazy, but yeah, as long as it's valuable, I think that's a big piece of it.
Yeah. The thing, I don't see how you feel about this. I feel like a mistake for podcasters would be just like sending out a weekly email that basically just promotes their latest podcast episode. And it's just promoting, and it's not like there's no additional value at all.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Because I feel like that trains my people to go, oh, I don't need to open the emails because I already listened to the show and I only need one of these things. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I could see a world where that happens, but I also want people to start. So maybe in the beginning, you're just like repurposing or rehashing some of the podcast episode. Also, though, like I have people on my email list who sometimes they don't have time to listen to the episode, and they actually go through and they prefer the blog post article of it because they can see a picture, they can see like the person's face that I'm talking about. There's different elements to it that you can't really get from just like an audio clip. So I don't know. I think in the beginning you can do that as long as your podcast content is really good. That's a key. I think that's a good way to start. But over time, you can kind of elaborate on it. Maybe you find common questions that people are asking, and you can include like a Q&A below the episode.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
I love that.
I think that's a good call out.
It's a little something extra in there that they can't get on the show. I think that's going to be a good long-term goal for a podcast.
Yeah.
Like you said, don't let that hold you back from starting. Like start getting the freaking newsletter out there, start writing. People tell me like, oh, I'm not that good of a writer. I'm like, well, please don't listen to my first 100 episodes of Podcasting Business School because they pretty much sucked. And now I'm at episode almost 600. I'm a lot better.
Wow.
But same thing with newsletters, right? Like when you start writing, it's not your best stuff. Like you're not like, I am William Shakespeare from episode 1. Like that's not how it is. You get better as you go, right?
Yep. And people look at my first deep dives and they're like, they're so good. You're such a good writer. And I'm like, guys, I've been creating websites and writing online since like 2014. So please do not think that is my first piece ever published online. So yeah.
Well said. That's important.
Yeah.
Y'all. All right. Before we wrap up here, I want to know what you're obsessed with right now. Obviously, we've checked the box of the 30 Days of Growth pop-up newsletter. What's the next experiment? What's the thing that you're like, I'm really obsessed with this lever of growth, to use your language. I'm really obsessed with this particular lever of growth right now.
I think I'm still in 30 days of growth land. I'm like figuring out how to repurpose this into a lead magnet that isn't 30 days long. And like be able to start selling stuff. Like I haven't really sold much to my community, or to my email list. I have the community, but it's only got 80 people in there. Like it's application only, not everyone's able to join. So I'm excited to kind of start building out something that can get people in and like make me money so that I can pay to grow this with paid ads and experiment with those kinds of things. So it's all a big cycle, and I'm just excited to have like a small little baby course that I can promote to people.
Well, I mean, I love, from a podcasting perspective, I love that you have one simple offer that is going to provide a ton of support and solutions for your audience. I think a lot of podcasters kind of offer puke on people sometimes, and they're like, observe my 12 options to work together and then go and get lost on my website. And yours is super simple. And, spoiler alert, June, I'm joining. So who wants to join with me?
Oh boy.
So I'm going to be in there. I want to bring as many of my pod pals with me. Let's double the size. I want the pod pals from Podcasting Business School to represent 50% of the membership inside of Growth in Reverse.
Man.
So I don't even need affiliate code. I'm
no
not
pressure.
I'm not making anything. Let's go, y'all. Let's grow that email list together. So, Chenell, I'm obviously obsessed with the content that you're putting out. It's helped me tremendously. I think that you are really doing great things for people that are out there trying to, grow an audience, and it's hard, and it's like a lonely thing, and can be depressing, and there's a lot of ups and downs. So I really appreciate people like yourself that are giving real, actionable, tangible things that we can do that move the needle and actually get, our audience, our right fit audience in front of us. So I appreciate you a ton. Let us know, like, just shout out the things. Where do people go? Where do they hang out? I know we got some LinkedIn. I know obviously the newsletter. I'll link up everything in the show notes and I'll get you connected.
Yeah. I mean, I guess for this audience, the Growth in Reverse podcast, if you want to listen to a podcast about newsletters, it's all good stuff. We enjoy talking every week. Other than that, the newsletter, growthinreverse.com. And yeah, if you want to check out the 30-day pop-up, it's 30daysofgrowth.co. I think for now, I'll have it as like just a sequence so you can get one a day like it was running before. I might break that down a little bit in the future, but for now, you can still get that. So
awesome. And I'll put a few of my fan favorite episodes that I've listened to, and I'll link those up specifically. I'll put a hot seat in there.
Nice.
And maybe I'll get the one that freaked me out about the podcast, about the newsletter about podcasting, and everybody can have a good laugh as they imagine me like passing out on the sidewalk. No,
that was a good episode though.
Oh, it was really, really good. Really good. So, Chenell, I appreciate you. Pod pals, let's take some action. All the important things. It'll be a robust show notes experience for this episode. So dive in there, get all the links and plug into what Chenell has. Just take one action step, get on that newsletter list, and then dive into her ecosystem. She'll take great care of you. And with that, pod pals, I'm going to send you out into the world, wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. I will see you next time. If you need a little bit of help with your podcast launch, growth, or monetization strategy, head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and get signed up for a free podcast profit potential discovery call. During this free 20-minute discovery call session, I'm going to analyze your podcasting brand and tell you where I think you're missing on an opportunity for profits. Next, I'm going to tell you exactly what I suggest that you do as your next step. If I've got an offer that would help you accelerate the process, we can discuss working together as well. So head on over to my website, www.podcastingbusiness.school, and click on the Discovery Call button to schedule your free Podcast Profit Potential Discovery Call.